Thank you so much, Melvin. That was a very good insight into the twin technology. But first, after this, ladies and gentlemen, we want to complement the green track. We are also joined by a great panel lineup of industry leading green tech subject matter experts and practitioners. We have with us the Honorable Shamsul Baha, the Chief Executive Officer of Malaysian Green Technology and Climate Change Centre, a government agency which focuses on green growth, climate change mitigation, and climate resilience and adaptation. Our next guest panelist is MDEC's Director of Business Digital Adoption, who has over 20 years of experience in entrepreneurship, education, healthcare, tech management, and organizational capability development. He is Muhudran Kamapulai. Also joining the panel is our special guest from Volvo Car Malaysia, Nalin Jain, who is a current managing director of Volvo Car Malaysia and has over 23 years of experience in the automotive, consulting, and technology field. Rejoining the panel is Melvin of Frost and Sullivan, who will be moderating the session. Well, this is another great discussion of public and private collaboration on green tech and sustainability. And I can't wait to hear what they have to say and the insights that we're going to be sharing. The panel is getting ready, so please stay tuned. We will be back in just a short while.
Hello, everyone, again, and welcome back. So my name is Melvin, and today joining me for a panel discussion on this green track here today is Shamsul from Green Tech. We have Muhu from MDEC and also Nalin from Volvo. So speaking about, so since we're talking about green tech, or sustainability theme topics today, so before we go on to that, maybe we can first of all try to understand as the year is coming to an end and we are heading towards 2021. So what are your views about the upcoming economic beat that we have in Malaysia for 2021? So maybe we can let Shamsul start first.
Thank you, Melvin. And thank you to Star for having this session. Yes, we are, today is 1st of December, and there's only a month left. And during the pandemic that hit us bad for 2020, I believe that Q2 was the one that affected us both worst. And this is where we need to actually make a comeback. Unfortunately, since the vaccine hasn't been gazetted yet as the sole measures to eradicate the pandemic, the economy needs to be beefed up. And the budget recently spelled out by the government, it indicated that we are very much in line in ensuring that the economy will be revived, and also trying to mitigate a lot of measures and how to ensure that we can create growth. And part of the deliverables that was being suggested is to inject a lot of capital towards the economy, towards the SMEs, and I believe we are in the right track. But the enablers should actually take it and find ways how to ensure that the situation can be better for next year. This is both public and private initiative. So we look at the pandemic as a way that to actually soul searching ourselves, but to be competitive in the global market. This is something like it hit us hard, but then the only way is to move forward.
So, Mufu, what do you think about the Malaysian economy in 2021 and what can be done overall?
I just want to change that. Is that much better now? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll just quickly repeat what I've said. Obviously, we don't want to waste too much time. Building on what was mentioned by Samsul just now, that we know that situation next year is obviously not. It is going to be challenging, right? If you look at the research or the reports, shows, of course, Malaysia is going to at least move up a little bit more, bounce a little from where we are today. GDP contribution could be somewhere between 6.5 to 7.5, somewhere around there. And at the same time, I think the COVID-19 stimulus package that was introduced by the government, right, that is seen perhaps to also to help push at least 4% of the GDP contribution, maximum, I would say. So all in all these things would definitely be helpful. But at the same time, if I could speak from where the government is looking at, it would probably be looking into a couple of things. One is in terms of bringing in foreign direct investment. That is one of the focus that is. Obviously, green tech, it is one of the core things that's being looked at. Second is in terms of how can we improve productivity. Productivity comes from macro, comes from organizational level as well. Right. Third is how can we boost the consumer confidence. Now, I like to bring upon the middle part in terms of productivity. I think that's where digitalization plays a crucial role, where digitalization can support businesses today in terms of improving, either looking at it from the labor productivity or in terms of the process improvement and all that. So this, I think, some of the things that we should consider, and moving forward probably be something that we should be looked into.
So I understand Nalin has been here with Volvo Malaysia for a few years now. So what is your take, on the economy? In terms, okay, we can try to link back to the overall scenario growth related to green or sustainability issues. That would be excellent.
So thank you once again for having me, Star Group. It's a great discussion and very interesting. So to be very honest, to start with, I think we don't have exact answers. It's a very difficult question, and I think both the gentlemen put it very well. But my perspective on this is that, and the government is doing, I think government is working on various initiatives, and we appreciate that. So for particularly from my industry, automotive industry, I think this whole COVID package has really helped to create a little bit of confidence, create some movement, and bring back customers with that feeling that yes, there is, it's not all doom and gloom, and that ultimately this has to end at some point in time, like Shamsul said, and we have to learn from this and move on. So I think that I think at least that thinking is there, which is very positive, which is very good, which is the right thing to do, because ultimately we have to move on. Yeah, whether the vaccine will come in 6 months, whether the vaccine will come in a year. I think we have all learned, and especially in the Asian markets, because we've seen these in the past, right? So I think the Malaysian economy is poised well in that sense. Of course, there are certain aspects which are much more affected, and much more like the tourism part is much more affected, but there are some parts. And now if we apply these other aspects, which is digitization and sustainability, then all of this can help and propel the Malaysian economy, because it's now becoming an enabler. Digitalization is becoming an enabler. COVID is becoming an enabler to push all of these things. And Malaysia is poised to gain with all the restructuring that's going to happen in this region and the world. Malaysia can attract a lot of foreign direct investment. So if we do the right things, I think Malaysia could actually gain a lot from this next year.
So, coming to the next topic that I had in mind, it is really about digitalization, because we have been talking about this topic, digitalization, digital in whatever that we are doing today. So, which industries are going to benefit the most, or is going to be have positive impact in the Malaysian context? That is something that I would believe that most of us would like to understand. Which industries that would be impacted the most for digitalization, and perhaps we're going backwards just at this time. All right, so Nalin, since you're from the automotive industry, so perhaps you can start sharing about how automotive industry in Malaysia has been advancing with digital technologies or transformation. And in your opinion, is there any other industries in Malaysia that would actually benefit from this?
Sure. So I will answer this in two parts, right? So who will benefit? And for me, it's not about a particular type of industry which will benefit or not benefit, but only how the industry takes this change. So anybody can go digital. And I'm a bit of an old school, and I never believed that, for example, you can buy clothes online, just as an example. And now we see that almost everybody's adopting it. So it's about the mindset of that industry. So if that industry believes that, yes, we can transform our business. So now that's the first part of the question. So it's about the belief. Technology can enable any business. So now if I apply that to my industry and my business, which is automotive industry. So this was already coming. It was coming for the last 5 years. And COVID is only going to accelerate the process of digitization, in the sense that customers would want the convenience of both options, which is physical look and feel. If they want to come and test drive a car, yes, they can come and test drive a car. But if they want to explore everything digitally and virtually, whatever they would like to get a lot of information online through the apps. So we are working on that, which is, we're talking about the entire customer journey. So right from the beginning of the process, when a customer thinks of buying a car, till the end when the customer car is delivered, and also then it is serviced, maintenance, everything. So every aspect, we are looking at every touch point, and we are saying that what can be digitalized and how. And that's what is happening in our industry. It's been happening for the last 5 years, but COVID is accelerating it. And according to me, it's only going to help us come much closer to our customers. So in that sense, for us, it's a great change.
Thank you. So, Moo, what do you think? Which industries have been very active in the past few years in terms of digitalization, since from MDEC's point of view and experience?
Yeah, thanks. So we've been working with a number of industries and sectors for the past many years. I myself have been very aggressively working with the manufacturing industry. That's about 3 years ago. But when you look at the sectors, yeah, obviously I think I would agree with Jalin in terms of two things. One is in terms of the maturity of the sector. That's really important. All sectors are important, but at the same time, not all sectors have the right maturity when it comes to digitalization. For example, if you look at the media sectors, such as the Star, and you also have the financial sectors, the banks and all that, they have been heavily disrupted even before. Yeah? So impacted versus disruption. So those industry sectors have been disrupted, I would say, are poised in a way to fully embrace digitalization. Then comes the other sectors, such as the under the services sectors, which we see today because of the COVID-19. They have been accelerated tremendously. The F&B, logistics, they tap into it. The ones who did pretty well tap into the platform economy, for example, where then now they've moved up the value chain. Those who didn't survive that much. And the other sector that I would really want to have a great look to see where they're going to go will be the manufacturing, primarily because they're still one of the biggest GDP contributor to the country, though it's sliding down a little. We see two groups of people, manufacturers, some who have fully embraced looking at in terms of data analytics, for example, today, but unfortunately, majority of them are still at an early stage of adoption. And I think that's going to be really heavily impacted. And then, of course, the other industries are still at the nascent stage in terms of picking up. One industry which I think should be put a lot of focus on will be the tourism. The tourism sector, unfortunately, is really badly hit. I think the government is putting a lot of focus to see how we can support, not just because from an economic standpoint, but also in terms of job creation standpoint. So my point is pretty simple. I think the maturity of the sectors are very important. If there's no maturity, what's going to happen is everybody will have the wait and see attitude. Even now, that's still happening. Yeah.
before I let Shamsul, contribute his ideas, I'm quite curious with, when you mentioned about tourism, right? Well, it is a fact that tourism is really one of course, the earliest or the most impacted, especially international tourism. Domestic tourism is still, okay in that sense, still controllable. But with that essence, the airlines industry is also impacted, especially foreign flights or international flights. In that sense, right, if I have to give a thought about it, sectors like tourism, airlines business, services sectors like this are really human-based services. It is really interactive services. You can't possibly go digital tourism. You can't say we visit Malacca just looking at the screen. It's a bit different from being there. I wish I could teleport myself from here KL to London, without flying 14 hours. So but that's far from reality right now. Although I hope it's possible. But what do you think about those sectors really about?
I mean, you got a valid point there. I mean, it's always a mindset. It starts with a mindset in terms of what can and cannot be done. Yeah? I think many years ago, nobody thought that people would buy a car online. Today in China, it's just a click of a button, right? People buy it in a split second. Tourism industry, unfortunately, it's pretty tough in terms of how Malaysia is looking at it at the moment. But again, in any industry, you can always have the way I see it, front end, the mid end, and the back end. Right? Obviously, maybe the back end side of it, where we're interacting with potential visitors and all that may still be a challenge. But the front end part, the experience that can be given. Today, there are many of this. Right? I know many theaters in Malaysia today have actually gone fully online, where they're actually picking up sales. Yeah, people actually go and watch not movies. I'm talking about like the wayang kulit kind of very, very national type of performances are now gone online, and then they're doing pretty well. But again, so this is again coming from the sector. What can we tweak? I think the front end part of it still makes a lot of sense in terms of the interaction. You're right, you can't give the full experience, but the new generation of millennials always are so used to the VR technology, and the virtualization part of it as well, that they play games, so they're okay with it in terms of experiencing it. But there's the other part in terms of how do you get the people in the tourism industry to also be digital first. I think that's where we need to put a bit more focus. For example, MDEC, we did some work last time in terms of similar to what we have in a platform economy, where we linked up most of the tourist guides, right? So there are many different channels out there already, where if you go to a country, you don't want to go and pay all this tourist thing, which is expensive. You go and find that individuals who's actually offered by those websites. These are credible people, certified tourist guide who's probably just an expert within that particular place. Let's say just a one state or one district. And that's something that we did. We tried. And interesting thing is that the demand was actually there. It's just that we took a bit of time to train these people because they were not digitally ready to embrace this.
So Shamsul, based on your experience and from what I understand also that you have several ideas about digitalization or digital transformation that should take place in Malaysia. So what kind of industries do you think that should be prioritized or benefit the most in the Malaysian context for digital transformation?
Okay, thank you, Melvin. Now, actually, the digitalization actually cuts across to all industries. It is not a matter of have and have not. It's more like a have and have more. So who would actually be benefiting from it? From the pandemic standpoint, you are looking at the retail industry because when you are having lockdowns in most of the countries, this is where logistics come into a very important role. Okay, and you purchase goods from digitally from the internet, and they would actually benefit most. But I just would go around the when we talk about digital sustainability. What is required is the infrastructure. That's for one. We need to have a a firm infrastructure in order for us to be sustainable, and also the soft skill, hard skill as well. So this needs to be emphasized upon, and obviously with MDEC, we are looking at that, but we need to actually own those infrastructure. We might have an operating system that owned by another company or country per se, and we are very scared for the 5G to actually be introduced, and most of the Western countries are afraid that the security might be breached. So to go on digital sustainability is very important, and we have the capability. It's just a matter of harnessing the capability that we have, and to ensure. But again, the infrastructure is very important. So it's for the industry which benefits most. Again, during the pandemic, the retail industry actually get the best out of the cake. But if you look at other industry in terms of construction or perhaps agriculture as well, digitalization is there. You have drone capability. You have the advanced AI to check certain grades of the soil, the timing of harvesting, the timing of feeding the livestock and all. So it goes across, not only in the sense that the manufacturing would be benefiting it, but it goes to agriculture, to plantation, to construction, mining, forestry as well. Because most important key is the data collection. Once you have the data, you can actually have it as an inventory. You can store those data, then those data can be made into multiple usage that would benefit. And I would say the most important key aspect is to have the inventory, to have the data collection, that it can be used and a benefit to the masses, to goes across all industries.
So coming to digital applications. So we have been talking about the transformation, digital transformation or green sustainability, these kind of ideas, from three of you just now, with various ideas and thoughts about, the economy and the transformation that is going to likely to happen and the benefits and all that. Now, moving on to the applications part. Now, there's so many ways or things that we can do with being when we go digital, right? So like Shamsul, when you mentioned about retail, the first thing that comes into my mind is really about e-commerce and the payment methods in today's mode of buying or retail. So other than all these applications like payment, there would be things like electric vehicle or hybrid vehicles that has been here in the market for ages. Now we have drones that monitors, building conditions for cracks and for the building facade in general. We also have robotics that actually are more efficient and maybe reducing carbon emissions or carbon footprints for the manufacturing sector that adopts robotics in manufacturing. So these are some of the applications that I have in mind. So if you have any other ideas on what kind of applications that we can use or adopt from going digital, exact examples, that would be great. You can share with all of us. In terms of the Malaysian context, that would be great. So maybe Shamsul, you can start first.
Sure. We talk about green solution. That is all about reduction of the greenhouse gases. Okay, we have the commitment with the Paris Agreement to reduce the carbon emission to 45% by 2030, and digital technology play a very important role. You do not actually have to have a huge carbon footprint for any sort of operation by having digital, and that contributed quite a bit. You talk about logistics. You have autonomous vehicle that runs by itself. You have goods that have been sent to one location to another digitally. Teleportation will be great if you can have that to be in existence. But again, when you look at the green solution context, anything that is digital, it reduces the carbon footprint. But then again, we have to understand where would all those data be stored. Those data will be stored in a room, perhaps, or maybe a building, and building as huge as Putrajaya, for example. But they would create carbon footprint, obviously, and will generate much more. So the green solution, we have to look into the context of to decarbonize the what sort of operation from using fossil fuel. The power plants have to use more renewable energy, perhaps. So those are the ones that are very much in it. We can have the digitalization of the technology, but then again, where would the storage be like? We do not want to have, this is just a very popular sort of connotation that digital is green, but the storage is another issue. So once we decouple ourselves from the usage of the fossil fuel, then we would be very much there with the green solutions. Yeah.
So Muhu, what do you think about this green or digital applications that would be, very beneficial for the Malaysian economy or the public in general?
Yeah, a great question, by the way. And it's always in the mindset of a lot of people out there, what type of technology I should use, yeah? But my argument has always been that even before you look at the technology, how does it serve your business? The business discussion should always come in front before the technology. It's really important for that, especially in Malaysia. We have that kind of mindset. Technology is expensive and technology comes first even before. So I think that one thing that I would just want to clarify. So great question, because if from a business standpoint, if we look at things from the return of investment, right? Again, that sometimes it could be a bad word, but in technology, but in terms of the outcome rather than technology first, right? So then as a business owner, whichever industry you're in, you will look at number one, am I using technology to improve my business? Is it improving my market, for example? Is it improving my productivity? Am I maximizing my labor, right? Or am I using technology to create new source of income for my organization? Now, when you have that clarity, then comes the technology. And green technology is obviously the ones that you should look for as well. So manufacturing, for example, I can give you a great example. Biggest challenge of manufacturers in the country, at least the SME level, is actually energy consumption. Many of them are using old equipments. Many of them are not managing their energy, and therefore that they actually pay penalty to Tenaga Nasional, right? Because there is such thing that you have the tiering thing, right? And you do that, and by a usage of a simple IoT device, you could, number one, track your expenses or your utilization. Second, manage and mitigate the concern, right? Obviously, this is a green issue here, and there are many different kind of technology out there. So at the end of the day, it's not the kind of green tech I'm using or the tech I'm using, but rather I have actually improved the utilization of my energy effectively by X percentage. And so when you have that clarity, then your discussion with the technology provider will be not how great your technology is or where it has been used or whether my competitor is using it, but rather how effective it is going to be for my businesses. So that's where I'm coming from. So I think energy is one great thing we can look at. Agriculture, as mentioned by Samsul, I think it's really something that's really flourishing now. Although we are, in Malaysia, we're still at a nascent stage, but you can see a lot of different initiatives out there. We have the Sandbox initiative, for example, which was recently announced by MOSTI. I know MDAC is also supporting there, where we look at the drone technology. Effectiveness of fertilization, usage of fertilization. It's really, really crucial. Agriculture, even in farming, in fisheries and all that. So they have many different devices which could basically, number one, help you to detect. So at least you know what level you're in. Once you know how to detect, and then how do you mitigate and manage? So that's a different management altogether. And overall, as well, data comes in, because without data, then you do not have the progressiveness in terms of where were you at, and where you would want to be.
So Nalin, coming from what Muhu and Shamsul have said just now, I'm sure you have some good ideas. Also, given that you're coming from the automotive background, I'm sure you have some ideas that, in terms of applications, that can be applicable in this country.
Sure. So, like you said, Shamsul and Moon are experts, very broad experts, and I think I'll pick up. So we have picked up all these ideas what both of them have mentioned, because as a brand, we have committed to being carbon neutral by 2050, and it's not just Volvo. Of course, a lot of other brands are doing this because they realize the responsibility that we carry. Because providing mobility which is sustainable, and when we talk about adopting all these digital technologies and adopting all this knowledge that is now available, and provide this as a choice to our customers, provide this as an information to our customers. So we're talking about launching apps, we're talking about awareness drives, we're talking about so much more. So, like Green Test has a green calculator. We also have a green calculator on our website. So customers can actually go and calculate their carbon footprint and see their behavior. So, it's starting from there, which is starting about awareness. Then, installing, for example, solar panels in our factories, so that, we can reduce dependence on fossil fuels. I think that's a very, very important thing. Then looking at alternate modes of transportation. So, the entire supply chain, the entire life cycle of the product, right from parts production to assembly to delivery to usage to maintenance and service and everything else. So every aspect, and the digital part and the circular part, right? So we know that, for example, how can we, like I said, use renewable energy? How can we use renewable resources? We bring back those resources, which is then, end of life cycle, which can then be reused, and make awareness across the entire chain. So right from our factories, from our workers, and providing this information that every action, every step, every process. So like we are even encouraging customers to use hybrid. So we have been having hybrids, and we are the leaders in hybrid in Malaysia. So in that sense, we are now providing customers behavioral change information that, when you use a hybrid car, how does it help the economy? How does it help the environment? So in that sense, there is a lot of initiatives that we are doing, supported by the government, which is going to help in providing the sustainable solutions, because ultimately mobility is very important. We discussed in the beginning also, not everything can go digital. Ultimately, we are physical human beings, and we need to travel. We need to go to Malacca and have entertainment, and physically be entertained, and not have, we can't eat virtual food, right? So we need to have those physical touch points. And so for that physical touch points, I think sustainable, eco-friendly mobility solutions is going to be very, very crucial. And I think that's a very important industry, and we are doing whatever we can to achieve that.
Well, well, I do have one very specific question. That just come up from into my head. Sorry. Should really about it is really about, so I don't understand green technologies. The ownership of green technologies in the past has been incentivized in Malaysia in one way or another. Like the ownership of hybrid EVs, in the past, that has been introduced. So do you think in the same context, maybe Shamsul can try to give some thoughts, or opinion. In the same context, should there be any incentive for digital practices, whether at an individual level or at business level? Now, say for example, there have been some tax rebates for the purchase of smartphones, right? How it is going to be implemented, or how is it going to be deducted, maybe once every 2 years, that is a separate detail altogether, but at least it is there. So in that sense, digital adoption, should it be incentivized further if there is any in existence?
Okay, now we are guided by incentives. That is the weakness that we have. You look at the Western countries, the developed countries, they are not guided by incentives. They are guided by the habits that they are they have to ensure green lifestyle. So unfortunate that we're looking at that incentivization. Yes, it works. It very much work once you have certain sort of certain tax deduction for importing of certain goods and parts. For EVs, for example, to purchase EV, we are always looking at should the government reduce the tax, the price of the EVs will be much lower, then the consumer would rush all the way to the showroom to purchase. But what we need to do is to change the mindset. Incentivization is good, but to change the mindset, to make it a habitual sort of a behavioral, put it in our culture that we need to purchase goods that can reduce carbon emission. We need to do things instead of going from one area to another that will burn a lot of petrol. We would actually order them direct to be delivered. So those are the things that we need to actually get across to the public. Not so much on to incentivize. If we were to take off the petrol subsidy, for example, would EV be popular? I believe so, because they will look at the metrics whereby to purchase EV, you don't have to buy expensive petrol, and electricity is much cheaper. It's cleaner as well. So it would actually trigger the interest and the demand. But then again, incentivization, it works for a certain context. But then again, we should actually change the mindset, and the awareness to the public is very important. And most millennials, they are very much into reduction of carbon. As you mentioned earlier, your kid, they refuse when you purchase things that have straws, they will curse you, right? So these are the things that we are looking at. If the millennials can change the mindset of the older generation, we can actually have the push towards reduction of greenhouse gases. Yeah.
So, gentlemen, Muhu and Nalin, do you have any thoughts about that question or that discussion?
I have something here. Maybe can I share a short story? Just a short one.
I'm sure it's really short. Okay, no, just kidding.
It goes to the point directly, what I'm trying to say. So just before Deepavali, we got a small puppy, right? So first time ever a pet coming into the house, right? Nobody's really familiar on how to do this. So my daughter has always been digital savvy. She went online, she did all the research. She said, okay, Pa, we have to give some treats to teach him, right? His name is Bailey, for him to learn how to sit. I said, okay, fine. So how do you do this? Okay, so first you got to take this, you got to tell him to sit first, do a point, and then after that, once he does it, you recognize him, right? You recognize him, you give him incentive, right? Okay, fine. So how much do I have to buy? Oh no, you just buy one packet, because after that, we don't need the packet anymore, because he should be able to do it by you just telling him, pointing your hand to say sit. So not equating this to anything we're discussing, but the ultimate thing, that the natural thing that happens to all of us is this is a behavioral aspect we're talking about. A behavioral aspect requires incentives in the beginning for us, in order for us to help to change the mindset that's required. But however, as you all know, the government coffers is not much. It won't last long for us to be able to continue. So that's where I'm coming from. I hope it's okay in terms of how I'm sharing it. So what I'm saying is incentives are important for the behavioral change. However, it cannot be a consistent thing, because at one point of time, it's not going to make any sense anymore and not going to drive any change. Yeah.
The carrot stick is not just going to be there forever, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's absolutely right. I think all the points that have been shared, fully agree, right? I think it's a balance of, so, we say that in economics, we say that we are all optimizing individuals, and we all like to always get the best deals, the cheapest deals and everything, so in our mind, we're always talking about more for less. But I think it's about actually less for more. So how much less we can do and still have great fun. So, I think that's where once the behavior change comes in, that's very important. So the behavioral change is not easy, and hence incentivization is necessary. But I fully agree with Mohu that it can't be endless, because then it becomes more of a greed than an incentivization. Like Samshul also said that at some point, although I also say that Western world is also not so easy, they also need greed sometimes. they are not very easy to adopt all the great ideas. So let's not put ourselves down too much on that one. And we are all human beings like that. So I think it's always a combination of all these factors which is necessary to drive the behavior in the right direction.
Okay, so now coming to about the final discussion point that I have in mind is really about the realization of digital transformation or the introduction of technologies, whether it is green or or green sustainability or digital sustainability team technologies into the Malaysian market economy. Now, it involves a lot of synergies between the government and also the private sector. So, what do you think, or how do you think the public and private sector should really collaborate in terms of to introduce the betterment with all these technologies, all these ideas that we have today into the Malaysian economy in the future? So perhaps we will let Muhu to start first, and then followed by Nalin, and then we will end the session or the discussion with Shamsul.
Sure, thanks, Melvin. So, my short answer to that is that government's role has always been to kickstart an initiative. Yeah, we come in when there are gaps. From MDEC's perspective, that's what we do. We also look at it from a kickstarting it. We have always looked at it from the perspective at one point of time this will be driven by the industry, so that we don't reinvent what's already there. We work together with industry to ensure that we can amplify the work that's being done. That's always been the principle we have. So public-private partnership is numero uno, I would say, in terms of how we move forward. Because there's no way that we can do or what everything that you see from a digital economy standpoint, from the work that MDEC has been doing, has always been together with all the different public-private partnership that we have built. Today, for example, in digitalization, there are two groups of sectors, I would say, really, really pushing SME digitalization, supporting the SMEs to move forward, the telcos as well as the banks, right? So we work very closely with them. Telcos and banks, obviously they are commercial intention there, but they have access and they also have all this varied knowledge because they picked up digitalization much, much earlier. And today we work with them, capitalizing all the expertise that they have, and together then we are now moving into multiple programs that we have built. Today we even have programs to actually coach SMEs, right? Take them through a process of digitalization, identify where the opportunities are, and then map it for them, and then connect them with the right technology solution providers. We also have now linked it up to some of the grants. We have the smart automation grant that we have. We also have a lot of digital transformation programs that we have done. So what we did, we combined this. The private sectors are bringing in their knowledge and expertise and the reach that they have. Government comes in enabling that with also the expertise we have, and plus the resources that's available. Right? I think that's how it should be done, and that's how we want to move forward.
Yeah, so I think it is going to be a very collaborative journey. It cannot be done by one entity on its own because of the kind of scale and complexity of solutions that we're talking about, the diverse views that exist in how to solve these kind of problems and how to implement these solutions, right? And then of course there is these commercial aspects that everything ultimately needs to have business case, like Mu earlier mentioned. I think it's a valid point. So, but at the same time, both industry and government have to take almost an equal responsibility. So when, for example, the Swedish government announced zero fatalities many years ago, our company took up the challenge that yes, we also would work in that direction in terms of safety. Similarly, now when we are talking about zero climate change, so our company voluntarily says that yes, we will also follow that path. So I think both the industry and the government have to come in voluntarily and say that yes, this is how we have to move in that direction and start working towards it. It may be a long journey, it may be a difficult journey, but once you start working towards that, it will, we can always find solutions in that direction.
Sure, thank you so much. What about Shamsul?
Okay. Now, the government have put up a lot of schemes to enable that there will be a green growth to the industry, and the most important scheme will be the financial scheme. How the government can introduce certain tax breaks. Those are incentives, but it does work to the industry. whereby their profits can be they can actually absorb those profit instead of paying tax, and also the getting loans and financing. This is very important. This is key, as you know that to achieve 45% of the carbon emission, climate financing is very much there, and the FDIs are important. So the financing is where the industry are looking at. No matter what sort of technology that you have, if you cannot put in $1 to the operation, then you couldn't actually get it started. So, but the government are having a lot of schemes that currently we at under green technology. We have the GTFS, the Green Technology Financial Scheme, whereby we absorb 60% of the risk by the bank, and also the guarantee, and also 2% of the interest. So by having all those and more would actually create accelerate the green growth and to spur the economy. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you, gentlemen, for the wonderful ideas that we have gone through so far. I believe the audience have some questions. And I was told there was 2 questions actually, so maybe we can go through one of it now. Okay, so there's this question from Wong from Webex, and it is quite specific to Nalin. So the question actually reads, how has the pandemic impacted the automobile industry? There's actually a few questions here. Okay, and the next will be, what are the solutions you can share to the audience, especially on zero emission or zero emission, I would believe, zero emission vehicles, or how AI and any new technology can enhance the automobile industry?
So it's a long question. So yes, I think it has impacted all of us, and it has impacted the automotive industry. So in both ways, in challenging ways, but also in positive ways, because I think people now recognize the importance of personal mobility, the ability to have your freedom and your flexibility to be able to travel with your convenience, with your safety, and your comfort of your own personal vehicle. So there is this positive move, but also, the whole supply chain disruption that has happened because of the pandemic, which causes strain on our supply chain and everything. So we need to have a much better planning on the supply chain part. So that's from the operations part, but from a customer part, I think we are seeing a lot more interest. But now how it affects our business is that, although there's a lot of interest, but we see that there are customers who want choices. So they're doing a lot more, let's say, research at home, which means we need to provide a much more digital savvy platforms to give them all the information about their car, about the servicing, about the future maintenance, and so on and so forth. So I think we are implementing a lot of technologies from a customer point of view. We are implementing a lot of technologies from a supply chain point of view. And so all of this artificial intelligence, when you talk about factories, so when the parts are finishing in our factory, when the supply will come from different parts. So all these, there are scanners, there are digital technologies which will tell you exactly where the parts are, so that our planning can improve, our ability to deliver to our customer expectations can improve. And this has been happening. Our industry has been disrupted. It's just that COVID has accelerated this whole journey. So in that sense, we are bringing technologies. And of course, when we talk about sustainability, of course, electrification is a big vision by us. So that will happen in the next 4 to 5 years, that we are going to have a full range of electric cars, which is also part of the solution.
Right. Thank you for your answer. I think that's a very good insight that you have there. I think exciting times ahead for the automobile industry. So anyway, I do have some other questions. Maybe we can talk offline later, because the automotive industry entails a lot of equipment, not just the vehicles or the cars that we're talking about. Anyway, the final question here reads, and it's from Charlotte from Webex as well. Now, this one is related to what we have discussed just now. Now, should we start considering behavioral insights or setting up behavioral insights team as an option to replace monetary incentives? So now maybe, this topic, this question I asked, or I was asking Shamsul just now about incentives, right? So maybe this time, Muhu, you can, give your opinion about this. Then later, we let Shamsul, close off or add on to any of if you have any insights.
Thanks, Charlotte, for the question. It's a very interesting question. It's to me, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, it's we can consider options, but why not we combine some of these approaches, right? As we know that everything that we do in an organization is a journey, and there is no one way or the other. As we grow in our organization, we start to pick up things. I think if you look at the digitally native organizations, right, the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, who are born digital, they've always looked at it from a behavioral insight, the way they do business as well as the way they manage their people. Right today, they were the first few who came out and said, "Look, we don't need for you guys to come to the office at all. We can sustain without you guys coming to the office for the next couple of years." And that happened because of the insights that they've gotten in terms of the behavioral as well as the insights in terms of the business that needs to cater to the kind of work they'll be doing. So I wouldn't say it's like 100% no monetary incentive, that nobody's going to be there, but a combination and also progressive manner. Yeah.
So in a similar analogy, talking about behaviors versus incentives. So I'm talking about behavior versus penalties. So if we have to pay for using plastic bags when we do our shopping, it will really discourage us, or at least at the very least make us think twice before we pay for the plastic bag, although it's only 50 cents or 20 cents depending on location. So in that sense, I do believe that behaviors and incentives or penalties should go hand in hand. So Shamsul, do you have any final thoughts about this before we close?
Thank you. We need a paradigm shift. Perhaps we need one generation to actually get the message across. But that particular generation is here now. Our children are looking at it. So the future looks good. It looks bright because there'll be this cultural change in us. The moving towards greener earth, because as we know that they would be the ones to be the custodian of the green earth in the future. So yes, I agree, and I also agree with Mohu that it had to be a combination of both initially to kickstart. Once the mindset have changed, obviously it's easier to actually get the earth to be greener.
Okay, with that, thank you so much, gentlemen, for today's session and wonderful ideas, thoughts about green technology and digital transformation in the Malaysian local economy context. And with that, I pass back to the host. Thank you for having us today.